I'm a 17-year-old girl, and my life has taken a turn that feels like a plot twist in a soap opera. I've always believed in honesty, especially when it comes to relationships. Cheating is a betrayal, plain and simple, but here I am, standing at a crossroads, torn between loyalty to my family and my morals. My parents adopted my cousin, 2 years ago. She's the same age as me. And honestly, I never thought I'd have to deal with her living in my house. I had a rough childhood with neglectful parents. And I get that she's been through a lot. But it feels like her trauma gives her a free pass to be horrible to me. From the moment she moved in, it's been a constant battle. She loves to point out how spoiled and ungrateful I am. And it drives me insane. The situation has only worsened since my mom started showing signs of discontent. A year ago, my dad lost his job, which put a strain on our family. My mom has been working extra hours to keep things afloat, and I've seen the stress on her face. Meanwhile, I has taken every opportunity to remind me how lucky I am that my parents adopted her. Just a few weeks ago, I overheard my parents arguing about A's behavior and my dad's inability to discipline her. He always takes her side, citing her past trauma as a reason for her actions. I felt invisible. It was like I was fighting a losing battle for my parents' love and attention. Then came the fateful day when everything changed. I had borrowed my mom's iPad for schoolwork and stumbled across a series of messages that made my heart drop. My mom was having an affair. Not just any affair, a 6-month-long emotional roller coaster with a man who I'd never heard of before. At first, I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My mom, the woman who had raised me to value honesty, was betraying my dad. I was devastated, but as I dug deeper into the messages, a part of me felt conflicted. My mom seemed happier in her exchanges with this man than I had seen her in months. It felt wrong to think this way, but it was hard to deny that she deserved to be happy. Especially given how hard she worked for our family. But what about my dad? I loved him. Despite his favoritism toward A, he's always been there for me. Even when I felt neglected. Now I had to think about what this would mean for him. I couldn't imagine the heartbreak he'd feel if I told him the truth. My heart was racing as I contemplated the fallout. If I told him, there would undoubtedly be a divorce. I would have to split my time between both parents. And I was terrified of living with alone. She would thrive on it, relishing in the fact that she had won my dad over me. Days passed, and I kept this secret to myself. Wrestling with my conscience, my mom began to notice my mood swings. And I knew I had to tell her that I knew about the affair. I was scared, but also relieved to finally confront it. When I brought it up, she was shocked. But then it was like the floodgates opened. She explained that she didn't want me to feel like I had to take sides. But she had also realized that my dad was not the same man he used to be. They had grown distant over the years, and her connection with this other man had made her feel alive again. While I understood her perspective, it didn't ease the pain. I wished things could go back to normal, but that felt impossible. After our talk, she told me she would confront my dad and that I could either keep it a secret or tell him myself. But the burden of knowing was too much for me. I didn't want to live with his smugness if she got her way and moved in with my dad. As I prepared for the inevitable confrontation, I felt like I was on the edge of a precipice. My mind was racing, and I was questioning everything. Would I really be the one to tear my family apart? I had always believed that the truth should come out. But now it felt like I was in a no-win situation. One evening, as I lay in bed, I thought about all the good memories with my parents before I moved in. I missed the way we used to laugh and spend time together. My mom had always been my rock. But now I felt betrayed. I was also angry at A for ruining the family dynamic and taking my mom away from me, pushing me to the sidelines. When I finally confronted my mom about how I felt, she responded with understanding. She reassured me that I wasn't to blame for her decisions and that the guilt of her affair didn't have to fall on my shoulders. But deep down, I felt like I was inextricably linked to the outcome of this situation. In the days that followed, my mom promised she would tell my dad. She insisted that it was time for both of them to face the music. But I could see the fear in her eyes. I knew it wouldn't be easy for either of them. And as much as I wanted to support my mom, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to witness the unraveling of my family. As I contemplated what would happen next, I thought about my relationship with my dad. He had his faults, but he was still my father. I loved him, and I wanted to protect him from the pain. But I was also tired of feeling like I had to choose sides in a battle that shouldn't even be happening. The thought of telling my dad was terrifying. Yet I felt it was only fair to give him the truth, regardless of the consequences. When the day finally came, I braced myself for what lay ahead. I wanted to believe that revealing my mom's affair would somehow lead to healing. But I also feared it would only create more chaos. I knew I had to make a decision. Would I stand by my mom or support my dad? In the end, I hoped that the truth would set us all free. But deep down, I feared that it would also tear us apart.
I'm a 30-year-old man, and lately, I've been grappling with some heavy thoughts about my relationship with my fiancé, who is 29. We've been together for nearly 9 years now, but the shadow of our past looms large, and it's starting to affect how I see our future together. To understand my dilemma, I need to go back to the beginning. My fiancé and I started dating in high school. It was a whirlwind romance, full of young love and naive dreams. I remember the laughter, the late-night conversations, and how everything felt right in the world. But when I graduated and headed off to college, I made the tough decision to end our relationship. I was ready to embrace my new life, and I thought it was best for both of us to move on. Fast forward a year, and to my surprise, I discovered that she had also been accepted to the same college. Our paths crossed again in the small hallways of campus, and it felt like no time had passed. We both dated other people during that time apart, but neither of us found the same happiness we had when we were together. It was during this phase of uncertainty that we started comparing our current relationships to what we had experienced back in high school. Eventually, we decided to give our relationship another shot. It felt like destiny had intervened, and we quickly fell back into the rhythm we once had. However, it wasn't until we had been dating for a while that I stumbled upon a truth that would shake me to my core. My best friend had hooked up with her shortly before we reignited our romance. At first, I brushed it aside, thinking it was something from our past that didn't matter anymore. After all, we were both single at the time, right? But as we got deeper into our relationship, I couldn't help but feel that this knowledge was a stain on our renewed love. I found myself asking questions. Did she really love me? Or was I just the backup plan? How could I truly trust her if she had crossed that line with someone so close to me? For years, I tried to put it behind me. I convinced myself that we were happy together, that we had built a life that was worth fighting for. My fiancé and I shared a lot, our dreams, our goals, our quirky inside jokes. We complemented each other in ways I hadn't experienced with anyone else. Yet, every time I thought about taking the plunge and getting married, the memory of her and my best friend would creep back in. Uninvited, I tried to ignore it, but it lingered like a dark cloud. The more I thought about it, the more I felt grossed out by the idea of marrying someone who had that history with my friend. It was a nagging voice in the back of my mind that wouldn't let up, tainting my perception of our relationship. It didn't help that I had recently begun distancing myself from my best friend, who I no longer felt comfortable being around. I wrestled with the thought of whether I should just end things. Part of me wanted to take that leap. It would be easier than facing the complexities of our history. But then I'd remember all the good times we shared, the support we provided for one another, and the plans we had for our future. My fiancé is a fantastic person, and I love her deeply. I didn't want to throw away everything we had built together because of something that happened a decade ago. So, I began to contemplate therapy. I thought it might help me process these feelings and gain a clearer perspective on our relationship. I wanted to work through my emotions and not let the past dictate my future. I owed it to both of us to figure this out, whether that meant moving forward with our plans or going our separate ways. However, every time I thought I was making progress, the memories would come flooding back. I would picture my fiancé with my best friend, their laughter echoing in my mind, and it would send me spiraling again. The idea of spending the rest of my life with her felt tainted by the shadow of their past. I knew that communication was important in any relationship, but how could I bring this up without it sounding like I was placing blame? I didn't want to hurt her, especially when she had been nothing but supportive through all the ups and downs of our relationship. But I also recognized that I couldn't keep suppressing my feelings without it affecting our connection. As I continued to reflect on everything, I realized I needed to make a decision, either to commit to her fully, accepting the past as part of our journey, or to step away from a relationship that, despite the love I felt, was being overshadowed by unresolved issues. It wasn't fair to either of us to continue living in a state of uncertainty. Ultimately, I had to face the truth. I was stuck between the love I had for her and the nagging doubts that lingered from our past. The thought of possibly losing her hurt more than I could express. But I also knew I couldn't live a lie. It was time to confront these feelings head on. And I hoped that whatever decision I made would lead us both to a happier, healthier future, together or apart.
I'm a 28-year-old woman, and my life took an unexpected turn that left me reeling. I've been married to my husband, who is 31, for 3 years, and until recently, I thought we had a solid relationship. We shared dreams, laughter, and the kind of intimacy that made me feel secure. At least, that's what I believed. The discovery came out of nowhere. I was in the other room, putting away laundry, when I heard him on the phone. His voice was low, but I caught snippets of the conversation that made my heart stop. Words like, "my son," echoed in my ears. And suddenly, everything shifted. I froze, unable to process what I had just heard. Who was this son? Why had I never known about him? When my husband hung up, I confronted him. My heart raced as I demanded an explanation. He looked taken aback but quickly shifted into damage control mode. He told me he had a child from a previous relationship but hadn't thought it was important enough to share because he didn't have much contact with the child's mother. The way he said it felt so dismissive, as if it were no big deal that he had kept such a massive part of his life hidden from me. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. This wasn't just a minor detail, it was a significant aspect of his past that he had chosen to omit. The implications of this revelation were immense. I tried to wrap my head around the fact that he had a child I knew nothing about. A child that existed before me, and one that he seemed to regard as a mere footnote in his life story. It shattered the illusion of our life together. In the days that followed, I felt increasingly betrayed and confused. I replayed our conversations over and over in my mind, searching for clues that I had missed. How could he have lied by omission about something so fundamental? It made me question everything, our relationship, his honesty, and even his love for me. I felt blindsided, as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. As the shock wore off, anger began to bubble up. He claimed I was overreacting and insisted that I should understand his perspective. But to me, it wasn't just about whether he was involved in his child's life or not. It was about trust. I had invested my heart and soul into this marriage. And to find out he had kept such a monumental secret left me feeling exposed and vulnerable. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't just brush this aside. I had always thought we were partners, that we shared everything, yet here I was, left out of a crucial part of his life. The emotional weight of that realization was suffocating. After a few days of wrestling with my feelings, I finally came to a decision. I told him I wanted a divorce. The words felt both liberating and terrifying. He reacted with disbelief and begged me to reconsider. He promised to explain everything in detail, to assure me that it was a complicated situation, and that he still loved me. But the damage was done. I couldn't shake the feeling that our entire relationship had been built on a shaky foundation of lies. The fallout was intense. He tried to assure me that this didn't change how he felt about me. But I couldn't believe him. I felt like I had been living in a dream. And now I was waking up to a harsh reality. Each time he spoke about it, he seemed to downplay my feelings, as if my hurt was an overreaction to an inconvenient truth. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself in an emotional roller coaster. One moment I felt resolute in my decision to leave, and the next, I questioned if I was being too harsh. Was I throwing away a relationship that had so many good memories? Or was I protecting myself from a lifetime of deceit? I began to seek solace in friends and family. I shared my story, and while some were sympathetic, others questioned whether I was overreacting. Some thought I should give him another chance, while others supported my decision to leave. I felt more lost than ever. trying to navigate the conflicting advice and opinions. Ultimately, I realized I needed to prioritize my well-being. Trust is a fragile thing. And once it's broken, it's hard to rebuild. I started to envision my future without him, picturing a life where I could focus on healing and finding my own path. The thought of reclaiming my independence became increasingly appealing, even amid the heartbreak. As I prepared to move forward with the divorce, I also felt a sense of empowerment. I was taking control of my life and standing up for myself in a way I had never done before. It was scary and daunting, but deep down, I knew it was the right decision for me. I deserved to be in a relationship where honesty and transparency were paramount, not one shrouded in secrets. I think about the time we had together, the love we shared, and I realize that even though it hurts, sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most important growth. The experience has been painful, but I know it's leading me to a stronger version of myself. One that can love again without the burden of past betrayals. In the end, I just want to find peace and happiness, whether that's with someone new or by embracing my independence.